Hello viewers and welcome to another episode of Lancer Custom Werks, where I will be discussing the various mech builds you could make and play with Lancer. Stortebeker.
I love to reload during a battle.
Wait, we done this already is an alt frame of Raleigh that basically decided that taking time to reload is for those with time to waste. Also, why get an inbuilt death gun to kill people when you can kill people harder with your own guns just fine with Truesilver power? You could even skirmish twice in a turn if you manage to dynamically reload a weapon, so you will always be shooting. Also, unlike Raleigh, you actually kinda want to combine ranged and melee weapon together to attempt to get that dynamic reload trigger. Stortebeker basically wants to have combined arms for that nice accuracy bonus as well as many other things. However, there's one problem: hand cannon, practically the signature firearms of the Raleigh, cannot trigger dynamic reload as it's an auxiliary weapon, but also, there's like only one reload melee, 3 if you count exotic gears, so it doesn't really matter honestly. And besides, you can just reload unused weapon with a quick, something no other frame can do, so even if you don't crit, you can still reload quickly with this action, though you will crit more and more often as your license level increases, so it becomes less of a problem as your campaign continues. As for the roles, obviously, Stortebeker is very good in the striker role, but it can function as artillery just fine as it can make those big guns hit even harder. For controller, defender, and support roles, it can work, somewhat, just not as well as dedicated platforms. Anyway, let's get going with pure striker builds first. Uncle Bunker is a Stortebeker with dual catalytic hammers to slug the crap out of everything, plus an Uncle Krakatoa so you can crit fish for free with multi-hit for the sweet dynamic reload, which mean you could potentially stun something every goddamn turn, and you are gonna see a lot of catalytic hammers in this episode for that reason. Plus, this build is also very agile with its speed and skirmisher talent, and you have duelist to ram people down after punching things, as well as many other useful things, so this build is even more dangerous up close.
Omae wa mou Shindeiru.
Is a Stortebeker with dual hand cannons and a supermassive fucking fist. The idea is very simple: Pankrati to someone's face, shoot them with guns, charge your fist, then next turn, just instant kill them with Truesilver to auto crit the DD288 for that reload, unless you get lucky and roll a crit anyway, hopefully with a natural 20 for that brutal damage, plus Executioner for even more damage if possible. I'm going to teach you a Smith and lesson is kinda the same build but more sane, with Nanocarbon sword to trigger more crit with Executioner, plus 2 rows of dual hand cannons so you can shoot 2 almost every turn, plus Gunslinger and Roland for a lot of damage. On top of that, you get Flicker Field for more defense, plus Smoke and Breach charges for some explosive shenanigans. Cosmos is all about dumping an unreasonable amount of damage to someone's face, whether with Deck Sweeper, Torch, Stacked Bolt Thrower, Plasma Gauntlet, or all of the above, because you totally can with Heatfall overcharge for more actions. The deep well heat sink here might just barely save your reactor as you send your foes to oblivion. The Khelmenikov is one of the many Cannibal Stortebeker build that I have received in this episode. Of course that thing will be featured in this one. What else to say? You go in, blow someone's face off with a Superstacked Cannibal and dual hand cannons, and then try to get that dynamic reload with the War Pike. It's just a lot of damage. And finally, there's the blood-soaked Mars, a Stortebeker with 3 pairs of hand cannons, plus a prototype weapon, which is the star of the show as it is a melee weapon with burst 1 area pattern, meaning you want to stick close to people to crit fish for the reload, with ASURA for 6 hand cannons worth of damage if you need it right now, and if you ran out of charges for the prototype, you have redundant systems upgrade if you really need it. And that's basically it on pure striker Stortebeker, absolutely destructive with their damage output, and it only gets better when you level up more for more crit chance. Anyway, let's take a look at something with more range, the striker artillery builds. Over and over is probably one of the more standard looking Stortebeker, with quad hand cannons for close range barrage and an Uncle Bolt Thrower for long range. With a lack of melee weapon, this build needs renewal to quick load unused weapons, and with Flicker Field, Stasis Bolt, and combined arms, this build has quite a decent amount of protection for itself. Siege Specialist here could even make the Bolt Thrower hits even harder. Black Barrel, the weapon to kill gods, is a striker artillery Stortebeker that's more about railing someone from afar, with Crack Shot, Core Siphon, Kinetic Compensator, and Auto Stab to make sure you will almost always hit with a crit, and if you still don't, you have Truesilver, and if you need to deal with grouped up enemies, you have an RPG with a charged blade to keep it loaded, plus Tracking Bug to make sure nobody can hide from your shots. Lens Flare is another sniper Stortebeker with a Superstacked AMR and DMR. You want to alternative between them as you use renewal to quick load the AMR, as switching to your other sniper rifle is always faster than reloading them. The dual hand cannons are backup, but with full gunslinger talent, they can still hit very hard. Also, Infiltrator, just to keep less bullets coming your way. Far Away Becker is also a sniper Stortebeker, just one with a massive howitzer. Just sit down at one place, relax with auto cooler cooling all of your heat, and then Heatfall overcharge every turn while bombarding someone's grid square. There's also an auto loader drone here for when you want to fire the howitzer twice per turn, you will need it. And for the ultimate sniping weapons, this is CPR is my favorite shotgun, which is not a sniper build at all and instead uses Cyclone Pulse Rifle as a close quarter weapon. Variable Sword, which has innate accuracy, is a very good weapon to combo with Stortebeker, as it makes it easier to crit, even with Uncle, so you have a decent chance of potentially shooting the CPR practically every turn, which will be very painful. In fact, this is not the only CPR Stortebeker builds in this episode, just that they are scattered all over the place. Next there's Furioso, another ASURA Stortebeker here to unleash a storm of attacks at its victim, with a starting barrage of Croil Rifle and Bolt Thrower to close in quickly, and a charged blade with Duelist to trigger dynamic reload, and if you need to, there's Heatfall Overcharge for even more action to cut and shoot up people. Short-range impact missiles, Fire with Caution, is a Stortebeker with, as expected, a ton of missile racks. You can expect a steady barrage of missiles and Vijaya rockets on your foes as you swing your accurate variable sword to dynamic reload them, and with Skirmisher and Singularity Motivator, you can really dash quickly across the battlefield. An angry swarm of bees with a pile bunker is a Senti main Stortebeker with a catalytic hammer. The prototype weapon is a Nexus, and with Hunter Killer Nexus 2, you really want to use these two Nexuses to mess up your foes real bad. Getting to smash up your enemies up close with Catalytic Hammer and Uncle Kinetic Hammer every turn is very nice too. A flash of self-destructive light is a Displacer Stortebeker because of course, you will need that fuel rod gun because since you won't be stabilizing much, that will be your main way of cooling down. This thing really need a deep well to be more functional. The fact that the description for this build ends on this note is saying something. You also have a heavy charged blade for dynamic reload, so you might often be firing the Displacer at near point blank range too. Super Lesbian Animal Rocket Propelled Grenade or SLAR Page is a Stortebeker with a Bolt Thrower and of course, a RPG. The idea is to alternate between the two weapons by abusing renewal or trigger dynamic reload with the War Pike. Remember, switching to your rocket launcher is faster than reloading, and since RPG is a main weapon, Walking Armory works perfectly fine with it for setting people on fire, or firing at targets behind cover. Also, you have Heatfall and Auto Cooler, so abuse those two for all the actions you want, and when things get too close, you have a bunch of explosive alongside full demolitionist talent from Operation Solstice Rain, that will hurt a lot. And finally, there's Nightfall Raven, with Assault Rifle, Bolt Thrower, Integrated Missile Rack, and of course, the Catalytic Hammer, with thermal charges. Even if you have played that one mission, you already know how this build will go. It's very devastating when that pile bunker hits. And that's basically it on the Striker Artillery build, the most common Stortebeker build, as the frame is really just asking for it. The combo just works very well and makes it so that no matter the range, Stortebeker will always come out on top. Anyway, let's take a look at the Striker controller builds. All Trades is an odd CPR Stortebeker, with an auto stab War Pike for good threat and accuracy to crit. It's also another not sniper build because of all things, it has Exemplar, so you actually want to get close to have more chance for your War Pike to hit something. And if it's more effective to cook something, you have quite a bit of tech attack bonus and Scanner Swarm with hacker talent to heat gun someone quite effectively, as you also have Held Image for free lock on every turn. On the other side, as you have Scorpion, enemies are more deterred from trying to hack you and your nearby buddies. Interdimensional Kauthe, that's totally a word, is a warp rifle Stortebeker, which means your targets will get teleported all over the place, plus an impact lance to have multiple crit chance with a melee. With OP Cal, Nuclear Cavalier, and Roland, your target will get sent off way further than they ever wanted, and if that's not enough, you have Accelerate and Final Secret, both can be used to make your allies move faster too. Power Word Hammer is another Senti main Stortebeker, with an integrated Nexus and Mimic gun for quite a variable level of damage and range, and when things get close, you have dual catalytic hammers. Also, invisible and hidden enemies will never trouble you with Eye of Horus, unless they stay 8 spaces away from you. Speedloader is probably some of the most cowboy Stortebeker, as it has hand cannons and a nano whip. If a cowboy is also a living swarm of nano machines, just sit down somewhere that annoys people, activate swarm body, and just keep pulling people in and grind them down into soup. The Ordo Malleus has sent me to aid you is just a half-blad Stortebeker with all that implied. It has Impaler and Webjaw to keep someone moving right after you get right in their face with Pankrati. Thermal Charged War Pike and Siege Specialist Bolt Thrower can be very painful too. And finally, there's V1 from Ultra Kill TM, another Senti main Stortebeker with a very odd dual light Nexus hand cannon mounts and an Uncle piloted Ghast Nexus, plus Tempest Drone to knock enemies out of cover or towards you, and Beckoner to teleport things around. So, here's a fun trick, because of Truesilver making anything auto-crit, you can use it when you want a Senti main effect like right now, and remember, Senti main shreds your target, so firing your hand cannon after the Nexus is going to deal a lot of damage especially with Gunslinger. And that's basically it on the Striker controller builds, might not output as much damage as pure Striker builds, but a little battlefield control can be very devastating. Next up, pure artillery builds. Combined Arms requires artillery support is a siege cannon Stortebeker, just alternative your turn between firing the cannon and firing the Smargun to activate renewal for quick reload. Sooner or later, your targets will be pastes. I have drawn you as teleported 10 spaces away and me as bombing your position is a somewhat funny howitzer Stortebeker that also has a warp rifle. It's simple, you bombard someone, they want to murder you by getting close, then you teleport them away with the warp rifle. You also have an Uncle Mortar just for more bombardment. Like what else can I say, these builds really just live up to their role, and now we have one last build, and it's just a bit unique in how it works. Barrett's Privateer is an artillery support build, of all things, with dual autogun and Veil rifle. Since autoguns fire at the end of your turn, you can just get the Orator dice at the same end turn phase, but earlier than the autogun firing. Same goes for renewal which only starts at the end of your turn, and the integrated missile rack firing. It can be a bit complicated, also you can just not hit any enemy with Veil rifle, giving your allies cover instead. In short, it's an Orator build that works despite firing all the guns every turn. And that's basically all 40 Stortebeker builds finished reviewing. Once again, I would like to thank all of my viewers who have submitted their builds for this episode. Stortebeker definitely gives another fun way of playing the Striker role, with its play on the reload mechanic. It's a Raleigh that wants to fire every turn and it shows, though you can totally make a Raleigh build that fires every goddamn turn, you just need to break the end of turn definition in half to do so, easy. Anyway, that's all for now and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.